All right, welcome back to another episode of the Kitchen Table Podcast. Today we have one of our own, assistant to the regional manager. I'm just kidding. I just made an office joke, but that's going to get edited out, so you're not going to understand what the hell we're talking about. But this is my good friend and one of our own, Justin Smarte. Justin, thank you for taking the time with us today, even though you're going to drive all the way back to Delaware.
So good.
I kind of sprung this on him. He was already planning on coming on the show, but we actually did some content earlier once, way back when you first came on. But I wanted to do a full-on episode, and we've spent the last 7 months, building the Delaware office, and most of which you've done. I mean, I've definitely been, I think, somewhat involved, but you've really built that office out mostly on your own. And so I think we've got a really unique opportunity to talk about the ins and outs of like what all goes into that.
Sure.
You know, I'm trying to make sure that sometimes the whole premise of this show was originally like, we got some big names on here recently, which is awesome. Like Tommy Mello, Andy Elliott, Ryan Stewman, some of our the roof strategists. And that's amazing. But that's not a but. But has a negative connotation. And the original purpose of the show was to provide value, though. And I know Tommy really went in on. He took an hour. The dude's time is not cheap. You know what I mean? And he took a whole hour to just make sure that he provided value. And I appreciated that so much. And it made me think kind of about the original, why was I doing this in the first place? You know what I mean? Who's listening and how can we help? So on that note, apparently, I've been moping around for the last year because I've had a couple people reach out. They're like, well, I know you've been down in the dumps. I had a buddy reach out to tell us that we had hail, which I haven't seen any hail. I don't know if you've seen any hail, but I haven't seen any hail. But we get all these hail reports, so I think I know what he's talking about because if we've gone by the reports we've gotten in the last few days, you've seen those, right?
Oh, yeah.
You'd think our cup runneth over as it relates to hail and wind and storms, and it's just, I don't know. Maybe there was some obscure place somewhere, but nothing of any consequence, unfortunately. But the point was when he reached out, I'm like, I'm almost, and I wasn't trying to bust his chops too much because I could tell it was genuine, and I know him personally. He's a good guy. He's like, look, I said, it's almost as if you're thinking that, I wouldn't know. You know what I mean? If there was hail in our area where we pay all this money for all these softwares and services, and we're always, every day, we're talking about, where's this, where's that? Hey, there was a report of something. Is it real?
Sure.
And he's like, he sent over, and it was one of the ones in Cecil County of 1 inch, and whatever, wherever it hit, we had been out there. But the point was, he was like, man, I know you've been down in the dumps. I just figured this could help. And I was like, down in the dumps, dude. What are you talking about? You know what I mean? It got me, this was only a couple weeks ago. So I was like, okay. I think I told you that. So I was like, all right, down in the dumps. I guess I got to make more content less down in the dumps. So I think what he was perceiving was just life, dude, So we've spent the last 7 months building an office that I thought, and I probably had you convinced that we were going to build, have up and running, and return on investment. I think the plan was originally quite literally 90 days. But I'm talking 90 days from here's the keys to, and that was the plan, man. And the plan had all kinds of variables and no facts, no experience. You had run. So first of all, Justin said all of 2 seconds worth of words, but he's not been given a chance to say anything yet. But I mean, you come from solar, right?
Yeah, originally.
And you've run an office before. That's how all of this, we got introduced by someone who worked here very briefly, but still, he had worked here and introduced me to a lot of other guys that he had worked with in solar. Some still worked out, some haven't, and that's okay. I mean, that's the nature of the beast. But I'm very thankful that you did because it connected us. Took us 6 interviews before.
Yeah,
we actually
at the very least.
Yeah, so. And I mean, I knew that was, first of all, that was necessary because it was so important to me.
And full transparency and disclosure on that. The reason it took so much, it had nothing really to do with you. It was more so just past experiences because the the company I was coming from, you put all this effort in, and just, again, bird's eye view of what it was. I quit my job, of 3 years, and I moved from Delaware to Colorado to live, and traveled all over the country doing blitzes for this solar company to come back to Delaware, only to generate a team of, it was like 6 or 7 closers, and a total of 23. The rest were canvassers, only to learn that this was all just smoke and mirrors. The company was going, I guess, out of business, bankrupt, whatever, and nobody was getting paid. I'm still on commissions, but that's really what the reasoning was for that. I mean, if I was young and dumb like I was then, I would have just very candidly, that sounds like everything, or the world essentially to me. So nothing against you or whatever. Is more so just you just get out of a bad relationship. You kind of want to wait around before you go on get into another.
I didn't, and I thought that to me, that made it more comfortable in that, like, I knew that whoever it was we were going to pick, if it wasn't someone, it was always internally, or it was always planned to be someone internal. You know what I mean? And then we've also found ourselves, so getting back to what I was originally talking about, like focusing on what can we do to provide value, I think this is it. Having very open, honest, candid conversations about our experiences, what we've been through, what it took to build the office, working with salespeople. I mean, if you listen to this podcast, you're either in sales or an entrepreneur, prospective entrepreneur, like, I think this is a great conversation to have, because we've been, in the trenches the last 6-7 months building this, and what did it take to get someone of Justin's caliber, right? Like, I knew he had run a solar office, but I also knew he had I knew that he had a bad experience, so I knew that was going to be, and he's not the first, sadly. You know what I mean? I've known probably most, unfortunately, of the guys in solar.
There's a lot of people, a lot of companies, different industries.
And roofing, right. And I've known, and I've been in there. Like, honestly, the reason why I went out on my own was I would have done the entrepreneur route. I was running the company with my buddy Sean. We were all excited. We put everything into it, not years and years, but still a lot of effort, a lot of time. Mm-hmm. And I didn't get paid what I was promised. And that's a really quick way to be like, well, cool. I've lost all faith and you've lost all credibility. So I knew that 6 interviews was a good thing, and it was necessary in that we had to iron everything out, make sure we had the right person, and fortunately we did. We had 2 people, then it whittled down to 1 person, and it was just what was necessary, man. Like, we thought, frankly, I think we didn't think we needed 2, but there was 2 of you that ran the original office. So it was like, well, if we get these 2 and I know they have experience, it just kind of worked out to where we ended up with yourself, and that's exactly what was necessary, because you did it. You did everything that was necessary. So I guess I could speak on first, and you've already touched on it, like why, like how does one find someone like a Justin to run an office if you're not? So my original plan would have been to bring someone up. Just let's talk about the scale here, right? Like, anybody can build a business, in my opinion, to a certain size, especially in insurance restoration. I mean, the barrier for entry, I think the roof strategist talks about it all the time, like, is what? You know what I mean? Like, I got a truck and a ladder. Yeah. Especially if I'm willing to go up there and just do all kinds of crazy stuff, which most folks that we've known, that we've seen go off, and they're willing to do whatever and figure, well, yeah, give me money. And when I say crazy stuff, I mean like nefarious, just tear someone's roof up and act like a storm came through. Like, that's of no use to us, and ultimately what we're trying to build. So, that's like building a house with no foundation, with no real. So we're trying to build a business to build scale and exit. You got to have something real. So that was never, if anything, it was trying to get ourselves as far away from that as possible. Yeah. And I knew you, with your background, wouldn't be interested in doing anything like that. I knew you didn't know anything about any of that. And so for me, it was refreshing. I took a look around with the guys I had, and this is where this is all relevant, was they're very young guys. They had been with me from day one. And like I said, most can get from like that 0 to 5 mark with just a group of buddies here on this side of town, right, in terms of the East Coast. Mm-hmm. Because depending on where you're at, you can do way more damage. And I don't mean that literally or even metaphor. You can do a lot more work because there's more work. There's just more storms, right? So here, 0 to 5 marks, definitely obtainable with a group of guys willing to go out and work. And I'm not saying you have to do things like that, but I'm saying that we've seen a lot of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We've seen some good companies too. But my point is, I was worried about the lack of leadership that I felt that I had. I had a bunch of young guys that I had known for years, but I looked around the room and was like, is there anybody in here that I feel like I can currently or in the very near future could count on to run an entire office? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And the answer was no. And so I had done all this traveling and coaching, and I don't know, man. I mean, I look back now and I'm like, should I have cut this person? Should I have cut this person? I mean, it is what it is. You either did, you didn't. It's what we did. And right or wrong, several of them were core value things, so I don't regret that at all. But, then you see these guys working somewhere else, you're like, that kind of pisses me off. You know what I mean? Because they're making money for somebody else. But you have to remember, like, well, what do they come with?
And with that perception, too, of it is, what are they putting that company owner through?
Right.
I
mean, you don't remember that part. That's true.
It's a double-edged sword to, consider.
Well, and we're specifically talking about problem people, right, that look great on social media because they're posting all their accolades and stuff. And when you make, like, you've been in sales a long time, right? So you've recently put together a sales team that's been doing great. So you guys know, we thought, 0 to 90, that wasn't realistic. It took us about that long just to get the office going.
Started,
You know what I mean? Just to get, like, stuff in the office, him comfortable, get a person or two, just all the things that you forget about. You know what I mean? Like, we need furniture in there. We need to go up there and help him. We need to get stocked. We need to get the licenses. And we had done a lot of that stuff already before, but there's stuff you forget. And so by the time we had gone through the stuff we forgot, then it's 90 days in. But by then we start recruiting, or we had been a little bit. And since then, man, in 90 days, we've gone from 0 to 6, 7 guys now?
7 people.
And our goal, by the way, was 7 people. Now, 10 reps to equal 7, though. Like, all of our numbers are based on 7 people, the production of 7 people. The recruiting standard is like, well, in order to maintain 7, we should probably have 10. That's the thought process. Similar here. In order to maintain 16, which was the goal for Maryland, we need to have 20. You're just constantly recruiting. You know the deal. So there's a very high attrition rate in sales, especially in the door-to-door sales.
Door-to-door. Shelf life of door-to-door is not too great sometimes.
No matter how the best you can be, it's still, like, difficult. You know what I mean? And so, take us through, like, kind of what your approach is or was in piecing these guys together, because, dude, we didn't have the training we have now, and even that's been, like, you had very little to work with. And so I'd be curious to hear, like, how you kind of made it all work, with what you did, because now we've got some great guys that have done great things with very little, formal training other than, like, the PCRU, the stuff that we gave them. And it's interesting to see now, right? Like, people probably want to know, how'd you do that?
Yeah. I guess a very large portion of it could potentially go to luck, because when you're starting out, you're in an empty room, you have no staff, and quite frankly, you're a little bit desperate when you're going through your hiring process. So, the people that you bring on are not always extremely qualified, and you end up wasting time. And but in certain circumstances, it's very you'd be surprised, because some of those day one hires that you were like, is this really going to work out? Like a living, breathing example of that is one of our guys. He used to be he was in the educational system his whole life. He was retiring from the educational system. He was a math teacher, then he was a principal. And it's like, just never had a second of sales experience. He's still around, and he's sold retail jobs. I mean, he's second on the board as far as contracts. one tool we had at our disposal, for making these hiring choices starting out was the DISC assessment. And we were, when interviewing and hiring, we were taking these DISC assessment results, and we were looking for very specific matrices, very specific, personality traits in certain areas. And another original hire was, someone with that sales experience, with construction experience, that essentially had done that his whole life, owned a business, and his results were, with what we were looking at, where we were valuing, what we were considering, some of the lowest that we've seen.
Yeah.
It was like, I remember when I had that conversation with you about him, I'm like, hey, interviewed really well, but, these are the DISC assessment results. Like, we're looking for this. I was like, I don't know. I think we're just going to, take a chance. And, you could attribute it to luck. You could attribute it to really anything. But at the end of the day, he's done very well too. He's our top salesman. He's collected in this month alone 170,000 plus. That's what the CRM says. He's about to earn one of these plaques right here. But on top of that, because quite frankly, when you're starting an office, it can be like somewhat hectic. There's a lot that goes into it. I guess you just grit and putting in the hours necessary, because you're not just hiring, you're not just doing this, you're organizing, you're getting furniture and putting it together, and you're doing a floor plan and trying to figure out where everything is going to go. And it's, just being somewhat, I guess, obsessed with that, while also still trying to balance like being out in the field and generating sales that way, and in-person training, which I say the word training with a grain of salt, because quite frankly, we brought a lot of guys on in a very short period of time, and some stayed, some fell off, and training in the beginning was not as formal as it is now, or as organized, which, I'm kind of paying the price per se for those types of like wheel and deal decisions that you were just kind of forced to make with starting an office. But, we're getting things caught back up and better organized and flowing in the right direction. And we're just in a really like sweet spot when it comes to the direction we're headed, where we're going and what we have and what we're going to have and what we're bringing in. And it was really exciting. So I would just say those are probably some of the key components there, is just sheer luck, but then just work, just doing the actual work and shutting up and just getting it done, essentially.
How important do you think it is? Because I know you're the type, and that's why I was telling my wife, you're just like me in that I totally expect, I don't think it's weird at all if when I go to leave, or even after I've left, you're still in the office. You know what I mean? And same thing on Saturday or whatever. And you treat it like you own it. That's your office. You treat it that way. And how important do you think it is for your guys to see that optics? I think it's really important. I'm curious to what you think is, because you're right. You're out in the field. You're always involved in something.
Well, to your point, yes, it's extremely important, because, and I can only attribute this to just past experiences, being a sales representative, like not being in a managerial light, and just perceiving my managers, and I don't know, you just kind of felt like you were alone on the battlefield for the most part. Like you didn't really have any support. Like they don't know what you're going through, but if you're leading from the front, that just completely eliminates that potential argument there. But quite frankly, I don't know, like staying late. I mean, that just comes with the job. I don't need them to see me doing that. It's just, again, what is necessary. And I think what that can essentially be boiled down to is just appreciation. And I've said this to you recently, is you can't train someone to care about their job or the opportunity they've been given. And, at the end of the day, this is something I truly appreciate, because when I had that, solar team that we were previously discussing, I felt like I was just, I don't know. It was just a lot of the same work, like field training, like a back office type of work, but then also like out in the field. And that was when I truly felt like when my life had the most purpose, essentially. And when I lost that, for reasons outside of my control, I just scrambled to try to find that purpose again. And I'll be honest with you, Ken, a couple months before, you reached out to me, the individual that worked here had made the connection, but just a couple months before that, I was like literally praying, it's like, God, like my life had the most meaning when I was leading men, when I had this, and like I can't go back to where I was, which was the car industry before solar. If any of you out there listening are in the car industry, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The hours, the people, I don't know. I would do anything to keep from going back there. And I was getting really close to going back because I was doing my solar thing like on my own. I made some bad like marketing partnerships and wasted a lot of money. And I was not at that point, but I was like starting to like have conversations and lining stuff up for 3, 4, whatever months in the future. And then I got the text, and it just felt like in that moment my prayers had been answered. But I was very careful about the decision. Made sure that completely vetted. And it's just been everything that I asked for, everything that I've prayed for. And, it can be difficult at times because you ask for these things and you try to manifest things into your life and receive them. And it's like, it's not there, but, as long as you just keep working and believing, it's already happened for you. The timeline just essentially is not caught up. But, I say all that to say that, because of my perception, because of my past, because of what I've gone through and what I've asked for and what I've received, my appreciation factor is atomic, essentially. And I think that's very important because when it comes to leading a team, if your team sees or they can sense that you don't care, why would they even care, When you have somebody that would do anything, then I truly believe that you can surround yourself with people that will do anything for you.
When they're just seeing you just punching a clock, come in, come out, treating it like just another 9 to 5, well, then don't be surprised when everyone in the office treats it that way.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
It's funny you say that because I still to this day, I get worried when I'm, man, I need to be the first one in. I'm usually the last one here. And that's just, I'm a night owl. Or, my wife and I have schedules where, during the first 3 days of the week, she's got to go into D.C., so she's like, hey, go in, whatever, as long as you come home early. But those days I need you to do the dog duty,
Sure.
But I worry, like, man, because it's just something that I don't mind staying late. I'll stay till tomorrow. But, being like the guy coming in like 6, 7, and then staying till like 8, 9, like I did that for a while, and I've been doing that for like the last 6 years, but I do still worry about the optics. You know what I mean? I still think about that. I'm like, man, I don't know. Are these guys going to see? Because it's such a big part. It's such a big part. If you want guys coming in early, you got to come in early. At least set the tone. But then it's like, eventually, I would hope at some point I can put like somebody in places, perhaps even yourself, where it's like, or don't worry about what I'm doing, man. Worry about that guy's doing. This guy's running stuff. I'm out. You know what I mean? Like.
Yeah. Well, while optics do exist, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a different position. It's a different, list of responsibilities. So, I mean, you're a business owner, so quite frankly, there's different things that you have to do and take care of that are outside of the scope of what a sales rep or a production manager or a operations manager or AR, you know what I mean? Everyone has their own specific role.
Yeah, you're right.
Perform their own specific duty.
What did Tommy Mello said, in order for the CEO to thrive or be born, the hustler had to die. And so like this idea of like, I'm just going to outwork, and it's like, bro, that's not your role anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's, who are you doing that for? Who are you trying to show that to? I don't know. Thought that was really impactful, man. I don't know. I don't know if I still see, I think a lot of the things, I think last year I was really riding high. I was loving the travel, and like I enjoyed, I had a lot of fun. There were still stressors. It felt very similar to this, but like in reality, we ended up 20% up year over year. And which was not even close to our goal. Very similar to this year, but even where we're tracking now, we have very high goals. And how do you, maintaining faith or maintaining like good attitudes and just that stick-to-itiveness, even when like things don't go your way. Our whole first 6 months has just been like one learning experience after another. But we had super ambitious goals. I mean, it's important to look at that, because I look back now and I'm like, man, no one's harder on us than us. We are always the most. It's just a fact, like no one had a gun to my head and like, hey, if this doesn't happen, by the way, you fail. You lose the game or whatever. But I treated it like it was literally like everything hinged on this year, this number, and we can obsess, especially guys like myself in recovery or in, with addiction backgrounds, you know what I mean? We can get a little caught up in things like that. And, how do you find yourself when you have constant, just keep staying positive? I mean, it's so important in this game, especially with reps, especially with leading folks that do door-to-door or canvassing. If you're in the door-to-door industry, canvassing industry, call center industry, already on a day-to-day basis, folks are like getting their butts kicked. Mm-hmm. So what are some of the things you found that have helped you kind of keep people's spirits up and just kind of keep, because I know you're not perfect, I'm not perfect, we fall victim to that, but you know what I mean?
Well, and I'm not perfect by any means. I still have faults, and I still get down on myself at times. But quite frankly, the majority of the time is what you see is level-headed and positive attitude. And quite frankly, to get to a point like this in my life, I had to go through a lot of negativity, a lot of hurt, a lot of pain, a lot of anger, even, and you can never have your yin without your yang, and I've just been through so much of the latter, or of the negative side of things. But at the end of the day, man, what really changed for me, if I can, dissect my life and look at it under a microscope, and if I can try to figure one point where everything changed for me, is when I came back to my faith and started trying to rebuild my spiritual relationship with God. And again, I can't say that I'm perfect, because I'm not, because I still screw up all the time, and I think that's expected, because we're human, we're not perfect, but by the grace of God, that's okay, and it just, I don't know, there's such an unexplainable peace that you experience when you have that. And, when I first experienced it, it just made me obsess over it and want more of it. And so I've just been diving deeper and getting more intimate with it, and just inputting a lot more things into my life that drives me closer to it. So, when I'm dealing with Mr. Personality Sales Guy, or if I'm dealing with this stress or that stress, or, I'm not, I'm getting home later, and that's creating stress at home, or whatever it may be. And at the end of the day, I have, in my opinion, one of the best coping mechanisms for those types of negative experiences, because quite frankly, that's like I said, it's just an unexplainable peace, and sometimes all you gotta do is ask for it. But if I can go to one thing specifically. I'm sure you're familiar with the law of attraction, and but if you can remain positive, you can only attract more positivity into your life. And I don't know. It's just I've taken these things very seriously, and they've been able to reflect into my life in all aspects.
So you found the more you sort of double down on your relationship with God, focusing on being positive, focusing on things like the law of attraction, the more it's kind of helped keep things in an even keel in an office where otherwise people are losing.
Yeah, at the end of the day, He gets all the glory. But I don't know, just all of those things combined.
I mean, that's interesting, because it's very similar to myself included. If I, if I don't invest in myself, and for me, that requires me doing things with my recovery, nothing else is going to matter. So I'm going to lose my mind. You know what I mean? Even recently where I was down in the dumps, like we were talking about, what I really think he was seeing was me trying to control everything. We talked about this.
Sure.
I mean, I'll tell you, my sponsor pulled me up. I was like, dude, what are you doing? You're miserable. And I was. And I'm probably, God willing, that won't happen, but knowing me, it's possible. Latch back onto something, try to take over the wheel. And it's ironic in that the less I try to control and the more I just focus on like, dude, look, I just want to be the best person I can be, help somebody, have the best. Okay, I have a business, so I can't ignore that. I can't just like, oh, whatever.
Sure.
Peace and love, dude. But I can focus on being the best business I can be for the sake of our people and our customers, and just do right by people. You know what I mean? And not just like, we got to do 50 million. You know what I mean? Like, that is a byproduct of setting goals and doing things the right way. But it makes sense, man. Staying calm, especially in an otherwise chaotic, like.
Sure. And then just really just trusting that everything's going to be fine and work out. I mean, that's whenever. And again, like when I face adversity, it's not like I'm, indestructible. I still like, oh man, is this like, oh gosh, like I've got to deal with this, got to deal with that, or like what's going to happen here, what's going to happen there. It's like, no, it's okay, because it's all going to work out.
What do you think are the biggest, like, gotta have the most redeeming qualities of a leader, or just musts? Like, you want to be a leader, you want to run an office, you want to lead men, because you said that was something that you just, like, that's what you feel like is your calling. Like, what do you think? I mean, that's about, you know what I mean? Just like you feel like, I mean, what not just what do you think that's about, but what do you think's required in order to lead men? And because people are listening, they want to. I made a post about that today. Didn't get a whole lot of love. Speaking of which, we got to get the missus involved. I don't know if he told you, but but whatever. People don't like hearing stuff. The nature of the post today was about the things I had learned over the last few years, but mostly leading. You know what I mean? People want to learn how to lead people. People want to know. It's like tech and all this other stuff. People and their just people. The ability to work with people is such an art, and it's a learned skill. Some people just have people skills, right? Like, and are just apt to like being able to. They're just natural leaders, But it can also be learned. But I mean, like,
sure.
I don't know. I think it's such a powerful ability to be able to build and mold people. And it's also super rewarding. But what would you say if you had to put your finger on, like, what are the mainstays in order to, A, be able to do that? And why do you think that's so important to you?
Well, I would say, on the subject of leading and leading successfully, especially in a sales setting like this, showing them that you care. Because I'll go back to my days in the car industry, and, I worked for one of the larger dealership groups on the East Coast at one of their smaller stores, and yet I still maintained top 5 of gross sales and units sold on a yearly basis. But one of the main components, one of the key factors, and I was making good money there. I was making like good money, define good money. But
right.
One of the reasons I left is I didn't feel appreciated. I didn't feel like my voice was heard, and not that I would like complain or whine. Like if I ever had anything to say, it was usually very relevant and fair in my mind. But so showing somebody that you care, and I've already kind of touched on this, but this is, I guess, how intimately I feel about this, portion of leadership itself. My guys, they'll call me very consistently throughout the day. I mean, I'll get anywhere from like 50 plus phone calls, texts, emails, whatever it might be. But I always answer right away. Or if I'm on the phone with somebody else and I can't answer, I'll call you right back, and I'll call them right back immediately after that. I'll take calls in the car, on a roof, like anywhere and everywhere. You know what I mean? If you need me, I will be there because I care. But the contingency on that is I am going to care, but I expect you to care too. If you don't, just just being there, showing that you care, and then I don't know. I really feel like that is a main component of it. You know, I'll give you an example of it. One of my guys is, you know, he Sundays is like church and family days, and I found out that he had to do something work related on Sunday. I'm like, dude, no, stop. Like there's more to life than just work. So like Sundays is like our complete shut off day. Like they know to not schedule meetings for Sundays, not to like you can if you want to, but like why would you want to work 7 days a week? But again, I go back to previous industries. I feel guilted or pressured to work on my days off, and like, oh, why aren't you? You know what I mean? Like, why aren't you coming in? There's more to life than just that. And again, it falls under the context and components of, you know, don't worry about something because, quite frankly, if your heart's in the right place, you're doing the right thing, it's going to come to you anyway. Mm-hmm. The more you worry about results or money or whatever, worry about not having it, not having results, not having money, not having, you know, the further it gets from you. But if you just approach everything, and it's hard to do, but approach everything with, you know, just a very level head and just confidence that it's going to work out, but, you know, contingent on you putting in, doing the work, everything that you're supposed to, because quite frankly, you can affirm, but affirmation without action is only illusion. Mm-hmm. So if you can do all of those things while still maintaining a level head, not getting too high and definitely not getting too low, but just steady, straight, firm with your heart in the right place, everything just seems to kind of lay down in front of you.
I love it, man. I know you got to get all the way back to Delaware. I would say, what do you think what are you most excited about for the rest of this year?
Well, I'm excited about seeing where the year ends out, seeing how much more we grow. Because I'll be honest with you, I've got I keep my top 10 goals for the year as my screensaver, and where's it at? I have the most successful PCR office by end of 2024. I look forward to achieving that goal by the end of the year. So I look forward to, you know, seeing what all of this, you know, work, you know, all of the time, all of the effort, the extra hours. You know, I'm look forward to seeing what all that looks like in a package at the end of the year. I look forward in watching this side of the bridge grow. I look forward in seeing us, you know, tap into the Virginia market and growing that team. I look forward to tapping into the Pennsylvania market more. I look forward to a lot of things, but inevitably I look forward mostly to seeing the fruits of my labor, personally speaking, because you know, like I said, I prayed for this and I received it, and now I'm going to appreciate it to the extent of I will not accept failure, and I will only accept the best. And as long as I can look at myself in the mirror at the end of the day and say I did absolutely everything I could, that's all I can really ask of myself.
Hell yeah, man. That's actually an awesome story. Prayed for it, and then look at where we're at now, man. I love that, and I love that dynamic. And I'm glad you're a part of the team, man. Seriously, it worked out exactly how it was supposed to. I mean, it really did. I'm excited for the future with you, man. We'll have to get you back. We'll have to get you back towards the end of the year and see where you're at. See if you're the most successful or not by the end of the year.
Here it is, number 3. I have most successful PCR office end of 2024. And it will happen.
Yeah, I hear that. I love the goals, the affirmations on top. That's why, you know, see, he's got those written in his notes in his phone. I've got them written down in a book at the house. That little corny stuff is, you know, they're common things and actions that people that are really serious about kicking ass do.
Big stuff. People don't understand the power that's within their own mind, quite frankly.
Dude, honestly, we can do a whole episode on that because I truly, like, your brain is a supercomputer. And I'm just now, like, re-tapping back in because, dude, again, I'm human. Okay, yeah, it was a harder job to, by the way, my wife and I are trying to build a family. Like, there's been a lot of variables outside of just work, which work is work.
Sure.
So, you know, I don't know. I guess I'm hung up on, like, the whole sad, whatever the hell he said, saying I was mopey or something. I'm like, well, you know I haven't been I went all in on this year in terms of PCR, which I love this company. Trust me. It's just, I think I did things inherently like, I think I shifted from the way I normally am and try to control everything, even as much as to like sell this, sell that, do all this, and it's going to happen right now. Because I did those things, now I control them almost, you know what I mean? As opposed to just being like I normally am. Like what you said earlier, that's exactly what I normally do. It's abundance. I wouldn't have sold anything. I would have been like, yeah, well, I always look at, okay, well, I got this now, and I've always been able to afford it. Like, it's never slowed me down. And then if I want something more than that, I just look at, okay, well, what do I need to do to get it? If I can't get it now, what do I need to do to get it? And I've purchased things or prepped for purchasing things, just as you said, just to push myself to like, okay, well, it's time to level up. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like the people are like, that's fucking nuts. That's probably not sound financial advice, and it's probably not, but it's always worked out for me. It's always forced me to go to the next step. Like, you know, I don't know. I like yours a little better, and that you're like, build it. So what he was suggesting was like, hey, build the car, and then, you know, in 6 months it'll be ready, and it'll force you to, it's a law of attraction. You'll tell the universe you want it, and you'll make it happen. I would just like go buy it, dude. You know what I mean? I couldn't even afford it yet. I'm like, I don't care. I'm going to go buy it now. I'll figure it out. And I did. Now I've since like stopped doing that extreme, and I'll put it more on like a vision board or something. But I had just like stopped all that this year. It was just like there was only one thing that mattered, and that was reaching a number goal and exiting. I didn't even think about any of the wants, the whys, or anything. It was just that one goal. I don't know. Very foreign to how I normally am. So, you know, again, like getting things back to basics and focusing on stuff the way that, just being grateful, gratitude for sure.
Gratitude's very essential because, quite frankly, you can't, appreciate the things you don't have if you don't appreciate the things you already have.
What's God or the universe or the law of attraction or any of those things going to give you if you're not already appreciating what you have? You know what I mean? So exactly. Love the way you think, man. I'm looking forward to getting you on by the end of the year, close to the end of the year. We'll see where he's at. We'll get you guys an update. Yeah. He's half asleep right now because I kept him way longer than he was supposed to be here. Now he's got to go drive. Hopefully he doesn't fall asleep. I'm going to fill him up with a 5-hour before he takes off out of here.
My truck essentially drives itself. You got a couple of little buttons you press and it just does its own thing.
Yeah. Well, it's a Ford, so I don't know, man. I wouldn't trust that. But, All right. All love. We'll see you guys next time. I hope this was helpful, guys. And don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a review, do all the things that help people know we exist because, people work really hard to make these shows and my content. It'd be great for a couple people to see it. But we love you very much, and we'll see you next time.